It was in late December of my 21st year, when I found my pockets bare enough to once more seek employ by way of the Atlantic Ocean, doing whatever simple work a man with high spirits and low ambition could provide a ship's captain. This expedition would reveal itself to be a cursed endeavor from the first breath, and soon would find ourselves adrift in near frozen waters, a sea of fog engulfing our entire world. For days that limped along endlessly, we struggled to ease the boredom by staring off into the mist, straining our eyes for the slightest break in the white hell stretching before us. On what could have been the 10,000th day, we saw it at last, the slightest of shimmers, dead ahead, and it was growing larger, brighter, and we were headed straight for that horrible, beautiful light, and in our madness we thanked God for delivering us into His grace. Little did my crewmates suspect we had been delivered instead to the gaping maw of the manscape. When the light that had overtaken us subsided, we opened our eyes to sight ever more miraculous. Dry land. We set sail for the island now before us, not far from swimming distance away, too desperate for the feel of grass beneath our feet to notice how strangely red the skies now looked, how still the water seemed despite our steady progress through it. Once we reached land, the miracles did not cease. Littered on the grass were countless wooden crates, filled with the most strange and miraculous wares we had ever laid eyes upon. Whether these belonged to another doomed crew or to the island itself, I will never know. But I am resolute in my certainty that the items were not of this age, or perhaps even this sphere of the cosmos. First, there were the boxer briefs, black as night and as comfortable as a glove, gently holding the curve of our nethers in ways the lovers we had left at home never could. Then there were the crates marked Crop Preserver, which contained wonderful ointments which cured us of the chafing that had long been a sailor's greatest misery. Then there were the twin oddities that were the Weed Whacker and Lawn Mower, vibrating wands which effortlessly removed the hair from our noses and unmentionables, respectively. And most curious of all were the shirts, all emblazoned with a single, enigmatic word, Manscaped. By the time anyone had noticed the ship had vanished, our hair had already begun to grow at a rate we, in another life, would have found troubling. But the compulsion to shave, to style, to clothe oneself in form-fitting underwear, it conquered our minds in a bloodless coup, and all it asked in return for its gifts was that we stay in this manscape forever, shaving forever, a crew of stylish men trapped in a realm of perpetual grooming. I share this story not as a warning, but as an act of obedience to a new God I both fear and love, the one who has manscaped my soul and speaks now, through me, to deliver a message to those who seek its bounties. Venture to manscaped.com and use offer code BOXOFFICEPULP, all one word, to get 20% off your order plus free shipping. I will repeat this once more. Manscaped.com, offer code BOXOFFICEPULP. Your balls will thank you.
Here's Johnny. I'll be back.
And you will know my name is the Lord.
walking here! I'm walking here!
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Groovy.
Welcome to Box Office Pulp, your one-stop podcast for movies, madness, and moxie. I'm your host, Cody, and tonight we're celebrating Thanksgiving with an episode all about food, horror, and the menu. Joining me are my co-hosts Mike and Jamie, plus special guest Spooky Sarah Says from Geeks Who Eat and the Final Girls Feast podcast.
Hello. Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us. This is, I would call Mike, Jamie, and myself food criminals. Like we belong in some sort of tribunal somewhere. So it's important to have someone here who actually knows something about food.
I'm from the South, so like legally you probably can persecute me for some kind of food-related crime. You put hot sauce on what?
I mean, I look at it this way though, because like food, yes, fancy food is fun, but like I am very much down with eating a bag of pizza rolls and drinking a Diet Pepsi. Like, you know, I feel like I can go the range of it all. I'm not like Gordon Ramsay who can't even so much look at a slice of pizza without like cringing. Like I like it all, and I think there's room on the table, as it were, for, you know, a little bit of everything.
I would like to say, as the resident Italian, that pizza rolls are perfectly acceptable and delicious.
Okay, good. I'm glad
tiny
we're in agreement here.
calzones.
You know, I've never thought of them that way, and now if anyone ever gives me crap about that again, I'm gonna be like, they are just mini calzones.
I'm sorry you're not invited to my tour of Italy in my kitchen.
All right, but I'm gonna test your ability to not judge us common food folk. Today, to get in the mood for this podcast, I splurged and I got candy corn and pumpkin brats, and that was my dinner.
Ooh,
Just
you took
Okay,
the plum.
pumpkin brats I'm on board with, but candy corn, not so much. I think if I'm gonna eat waxy Halloween candy, I'm gonna go with pumpkin mallow creams. I think they have a better honey flavor than candy corn does.
But how does that pair with the brat?
I mean, I'm sure that they've done it on Chopped.
But yeah, these were the Spooktoberfest brats were a huge deal at my local deli last year. They kind of went viral for them. I bought a couple this year and had them sitting in my freezer. Didn't make them in time for Halloween. I figured now was the perfect time to bring out these sausage abominations. So if I pass away halfway through this recording, just assume it was the brats.
You will. I still stand by the pumpkin brats. I think I always enjoy like pumpkin with like a hearty meat like that. It tends to pair pretty well. The candy corn, so it was literally just candy corn mixed in with the brats.
There's chunks of candy corn mixed in with this brat, and but just small pieces, and it melts in.
You know, I made up for it though. Me and my husband celebrated our anniversary this past weekend, and we went out to a fancy restaurant for the first time since COVID. Like we haven't done this in like years, and we treated ourselves, and we had foie gras, and it was so good. And it was like the tiniest little piece of foie gras that I've probably ever seen, but it was just so delicious. And the ribeye I had, ooh, it was heaven. So I think really I made up for it. I think I made up for your candy corn abomination.
Yeah, that probably balances. And I should say the side was a leftover sweet potatoes that had been sitting around my fridge for like a week. So, you know, just primed for this whole situation.
So you may die by the end of this podcast. Like this may be the last recording.
This is my last hurrah. But I'm glad I get to talk about a movie I really enjoyed before I go. So the menu recently came out. I was lucky enough to actually have it in my theater, so I ran to it right away. And I was just knocked down. I was hoping for good things, didn't know a lot going in, but absolutely loved everything it was doing. It's funny. It's twisty without feeling like it's overly contrived. Man, the performances are so good. I just don't have a single bad thing to say about this movie.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I'm obsessed with gastro horror. So like this for me, this has been my most anticipated horror movie of the year, with maybe the exception of Scare Package 2. And because if y'all don't know, I am the fan club president of the Scare Package fan club. I can't even say it all.
We're always down for more rad chat around here. So
heck yeah.
Definitely on your side.
So I've been looking forward to this movie. I had avoided all trailers. I just knew that it was restaurant, gastro horror, and I was like on board. And then come to find out that they had Dominique Crenn on set as like, to help be like a consultant. And she's the only American woman to have a 3-star Michelin restaurant.
Oh.
So they had her, and then their second, I can't even think of it's like the second camera, the second unit, that's it. The second unit was actually, the director of photography there was Chloe Weaver, who was the second unit director on Chef's Table.
Oh,
so
nice.
all of the food looks beautiful, like legitimately, like because they had real talent, food talent on set to do it. So from a food standpoint, I was just floored. And then Anya Taylor-Joy.
Oh yeah, but it is really some of the prettiest food I've seen in a movie since. Well, I guess it wasn't a movie, but Hannibal, the TV show. I never really thought they were going to be able to top those things. But boy, I would really like some of that no bread.
We recreated Memory and the palate cleansing tea on Geeks Who Eat.
Oh, I saw that. It looked amazing.
Those recipes are up now, and like Searchlight actually did help us out a little bit. They were my rep here in town for like the local screenings. He was in touch with Searchlight, and so he was, asking them like, can I get like, screenshots of the food so that they can recreate this? And they sent us like a copy of the menu that was used in the film so that we could have it for staging, and it was just so cool. Yeah, and so I this movie really holds like a special place in my heart because like not only did, it have to do with like what I'm passionate about with gastro horror, but like the studio actually like was encouraging and helpful of our recipes.
So out of curiosity, on that menu, I remember it being in the theater trying to read it really quickly, but they don't show it very long. Does it actually include all the dishes that were in the film? Because I was wondering, there's like the part where like Tyler screws up. I was wondering. So that was said it was offhand.
We're good with language on this show. I just want to be clear. Okay, like so Tyler's bullshit is not on the menu, nor is Bryce's birthday cake, and then the supplemental cheeseburger course is also not on there. But what's interesting is what is on there is a thing called cleaning your plate, which was supposed to be various preparations of peanuts, roasted candied praline, paste, brittle, and caramelized sugar, and those are never in the movie. So it's and I found the screen, like, because I was also sent a screener before the press conference. I was like pausing it to look at the menu because this is what I do. I'm that insane. And the cleaning your plate is actually on Anya Taylor-Joy's menu when she wipes her mouth with it.
Yeah. Okay.
And so the one I have is legitimately the one that is used in the film. Like, not like I don't have a movie used copy, but I have the PDF of what was printed for the film, I should say.
Right. Yeah.
You have the canon menu.
I do have the canon menu.
So my experience in the theater, I was surprised. I went there on Saturday and it was about 75% full, which I wasn't expecting unless it's, it's something like a superhero film. I don't expect my theater to sell out of movies. So that was a bright surprise. But even better, the audience, as the movie went on, got more and more into it. And then when we get to the interstitials basically showing what's on the menu, by the end, they were just, losing their shit each time one of those popped up. Like you'd see Tyler's bullshit. So I loved how the audience kind of warmed up to the entire thing as it went along. Like they weren't sure, they were a little unsteady, but by the end, they were totally eating it.
Yeah, it was. I went to a screen. I was at a press screening, so my first screening was very small, but everybody loved it. Like there was not. I think there might have been one person who reviewed it that didn't love it,
and then he was immediately turned into a giant s'more.
I mean, I judged him.
They are wrong.
This is our next point of contention, though. Where do you land on s'mores?
I think s'mores are delicious, but they are definitely messier than they are worth most of the time.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Like, they're delicious. It's
like crawfish, not worth the trouble.
Exactly. Amen. But they did give us a s'mores kit, which I thought was hilarious. So now I can actually make s'mores in my house and then kill everybody for being judgmental and destroying my art.
The dream.
God. Oh man. So I thought I was so smart. Walking into the menu, I was trying to brainstorm different horror films that really focused on food. And I was like, oh, wow, it is really class-based, isn't it? Thinking of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and how that's more like eating for survival. And then you have stuff like Hannibal where it's exotic eating, or something like Fresh where it's rich guys paying for human flesh because why not? And then I get into the menu and it's like, no, we've got the class stuff covered. Don't worry about it. And boy, really stole my thunder when someone said it way more eloquently than I ever could in that film.
Yeah, I would say that gastro horror does have a lot to do with classism. I mean, you also have Cadaver, which is, I think it's Icelandic or Norwegian, which is another cannibalism film where the rich are eating the poor. And, but I think like also like you have a lot of, you have a lot of that because of, especially with cannibalism, because cannibalism is always kind of viewed as, gosh, I'm looking for the word to like put it, but it's always like the others. It's always some sort of others. Like, so you're always looking down on these, like, cause it's usually like hillbillies or like, and like it's kind of switched because it used to be like, with like, I don't know if y'all have seen Joe Bob's, like How the Rednecks Saved Hollywood, but he actually talks about how, how like the hillbillies, it's always like the northerners looking down on them, and then they go where they shouldn't be and put their foot where they shouldn't, and then meet their demise, as it were. And so it's kind of flipped like more in recent years where it's now the rich eating the poor, to for whatever like reason. But it's interesting to see that class dynamic like flip.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course like we can always get into the white savior complex of jungle cannibalism and all of that Italian cannibalism and all that, but that is not what we are here to do.
Whole different story. It might not even be a smart idea to talk about cannibalism in this one at all, considering, menu is pretty much
actually, that was, I love this movie, and it's tied easily for my favorite movie of the year with Fresh. But I was a little bit disappointed that there wasn't cannibalism in it. If I'm gonna be honest,
I feel that way about every film.
I was like really hoping that there would be like even just like a small amount, like maybe not like the whole movie. But I did kind of wish that there would have been some cannibalism in it.
I just assumed there was going to be some as just a matter of business.
I kind of thought they were going to cook Tyler at some point.
Yeah, when Tyler takes off his tie, I thought, oh, that's it. He's going to hop right in the oven. He's going to be the next course. And surprise, I was overthinking it.
It is interesting to me with when it comes to cannibalism from the way it's flipped. But even when it was just hillbillies or hills have eyes and stuff like that, it still comes, it always comes from a place of the ones who are consuming the other people are coming at it from a place of superiority. Even when it's Northerners invading, the Ozarks or something like that, it's still, they think they're superior, but in fact they are inferior in comparison to those who are attempting to consume them. It always kind of comes back to the same basic idea.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, well, it's stuff like, especially with stuff like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think that like plays into a lot of fears that like 20th century America had over its own domestication. Like that whole like deliverance thing of like, oh, I may be a captain of industry with a good education who can totally handle himself in the big city, but the second I step into a more primitive setting, suddenly I'm not the alpha male anymore. Suddenly the things that I thought mattered and made me strong mean nothing because there's this actual predator out here.
I will say that in all of my gastro horror love, I really do love backwoods cannibalism movies. Like that is kind of like, I really just, that in terms of the cannibalism film genre, that is the type that I typically kind of gravitate towards, though most of them are terrible.
Would you say that's your favorite flavor? I'll see myself. I couldn't help myself. I had to get in.
I almost made that pun, and then I thought, no, Cody's got this one.
I do really love Fresh though. I love the commentary in Fresh, and I think the menu does a good job with that as well. Like they did a really excellent job not making, like, I feel like where this movie really succeeded is that it was very heavy on the commentary, but it didn't beat you over the head with it. Like it didn't like make like it didn't make a statement and then wink at the camera.
Right. Well, and
Which
I think
a
it
lot
really
of films
sells.
do.
Oh, sure. I think it really sells because Ray Fiennes is such a kind of layered character in this. It's not necessarily that he is 100% evil, so you don't have to listen to his points, or he is so right about everything that it feels like he's preaching. You get the sense this guy is clearly flawed, but maybe isn't totally wrong about a lot of the things he's saying.
That is my hot take. Is I actually think that Julian Slowik is the anti-hero of the film. He's not a good guy, but he's not the antagonist at all.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he's at all the antagonist. I think he is an anti-hero who has made some really shitty choices. Like, but what I find interesting about him is that he acknowledges those choices and then seeks to kind of destroy the culture that, pushed him towards those things.
Right. And we see that he's not a hypocrite a lot of times because he's pretty open. Everyone's going to die tonight. And he, isn't screwing around. He isn't lying to them about that. He expects everyone to die till the very end when he changes his mind. There's the moment where he picks up the burning rock because he talks about how like a seasoned chef can do that kind of thing. So he kind of puts his money where his mouth is a lot of times in his actions. And I think that endures him to you when okay, well, he believes what he's saying. He's not just full of hot air, or he's not just trying to protect his own feelings.
Yeah, and then like when there's the discussion that he has with the female chef, and she says, like, he tried to have sex with me several times, and, I stayed because he's the man and he's the boss. And then he apologizes to her, and it doesn't, in that moment, it doesn't like feel like he doesn't mean it.
Right.
Like it feels like he's, legitimately, apologetic for what he did, and he lets her stab him. I mean, come on.
Right.
Like,
well, and he's kind of publicly flogging himself for it too. He wants all these awful people to know he's kind of awful too. He calls himself a monster later on, and we can see why. So it's not like he's trying to squirm his way out of this. He's taking it, front on.
Yeah, for someone who's always seeked perfection, to show publicly that he's not perfect, I think kind of indicates that he is, aware and apologetic for what he did.
Yeah.
And then we find out that it was her idea to kill everyone anyway. So
he's listening to her. He's learning, although he still abuses power in the first place.
Truth.
One thing, and I might be overthinking this, but I love how that whole section tied into the menu, because we have them serving, I believe it's a blackened chicken breast with the scissors stabbed into it. Or it's not a breast. Is it a breast or a thigh?
It's a chicken thigh. And that was
a thigh,
actually...
which connects right into being stabbed in the thigh.
It's actually 2 courses prior.
Yeah. But he would have had that planned since it's part of the menu later on for him to do that exhibition. So I kind of associate all that. Plus there's the moment where he talks about stabbing his own father in the leg.
That's when they serve the chicken.
Right.
And
so
then,
you get all those things kind of in my mind blended together into one statement he's trying to make about man's folly.
Mm-hmm. So basically what happens is he has memory, then they do the mess where the sous chef, shoots himself in the head, and then they do man's folly. So they kind of do this like, storytelling of like, kind of like his upbringing.
Yeah.
As it were. Like, and his rise. And then we later find out that, he had a family and he basically gave up his family for this career and for this job to serve people who don't appreciate him and won't appreciate the sacrifice that he has made because most people don't know or care.
Right. Yeah. Even though it's what, 12,000 a night or something they said for a single person.
12.50 a head, I think is what he said. And then that one guy, he's like, tell me one thing you ate the last time you were here. You've been here 11 times, and he couldn't do it.
Yeah, it gets the fish wrong. Even his wife doesn't even really pay attention.
Yeah. So it's an interesting like movie, and like I think that, when you look at it, especially like I used to do restaurant coverage with my website. And so like, I know a lot of chefs and I know a lot of people in the food and service industry. And I love seeing their reactions to this movie because they are the ones who are like, yeah, absolutely, that was an amazing movie. Like, hell yeah.
So I could be totally off base here because I picked it up from the internet, but I saw someone make a TikTok describing that each course of the menu is kind of patterned after a different Michelin-starred restaurant. I don't know how true that is or if you know anything along those lines, but I was very curious to see if they were trying to maybe
I mean,
parody or play on
given
specific restaurants.
given that Dominique Crenn was there for consultation, I wouldn't be surprised if there were nods to certain restaurants or chefs or, whatnot. Like I would absolutely believe that. But I haven't seen, and it wasn't told to anyone officially, I don't think, in any capacity that it was.
Right. And hopefully none of the characters look a little too close to real life people. Like the magazine editor hopefully doesn't look like anyone real. Or
Well,
otherwise it would have
John
burned.
Leguizamo said that he modeled his character after Steven Seagal because Steven Seagal was a jerk to him on set.
That makes a lot of sense.
And
It makes perfect sense.
so he said that was who he modeled that character after.
Well, Leguizamo has that moment towards the beginning where he's like, "Hey guys, I was in this action movie, and we gotta fight him." And it seems like a very Seagal thing to try and make those claims that you're a real life type tough guy, but then not actually do anything.
Exactly.
And I love that point in the movie as well, where Fiennes basically says, "You guys probably could have escaped. Like you could have overpowered us. It's weird you didn't try harder." Which I think
Well,
there's a lot of commentary there about the type of people that you would put in this situation.
yeah, and actually Mark Mylod that's the director. He actually, to get the cast in that mindset, he gave them homework to watch The Exterminating Angel,
Right.
which is, I think, like a 1962 film. And it's basically an upper class group of people who get stuck in in somebody's living room.
It's the worst dinner party.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies that I think you only really need to see once. It just made me so uncomfortable. Like, this was good. I had enough.
I actually want to watch it again. I just recently watched it for the first time and I was like, I think I need to see this again. Like, now knowing what's happened and then reading more about context,
Mhm.
I want to watch it again. Not necessarily right away, but I do think it was interesting enough that I did go buy it during the Criterion sale. So,
I mean, it would make a really good companion piece to this.
yeah, I think it would be a really interesting double feature.
And then I know a lot of other people have said it, but I think if everyone's saying it's probably true. Midsummer, a lot of vibes from that. You could probably pair these two movies together pretty easily.
Yeah,
One from the
I
cult
would.
vibes and two for the big old fiery explosion at the end.
Yeah, I would say it definitely has a similar tone.
I keep going to Snowpiercer. I don't know why. Like, there's some reason, there's something about that certain broad type of dark comedy matched with the class warfare thing going on that, I don't know, it feels very Snowpiercer. Like, it's very same world almost.
Well, you get high and low food, I think, in that comparison, right? Because this movie is obviously like the super fine cuisine, and then
Yeah.
Snowpiercer, it's like the gelatinous blobs of people.
They were grasshoppers.
Oh, grasshoppers. Okay. I was mixing up the story he talks about eating a baby in that movie.
Yeah, the baby was delicious though. Something that did really resonate with me though with the menu is outside of the classist stuff is the film is commenting on so many different things at once, utilizing that as kind of like the base wraparound. But what interested me was Slowik's the self-loathing and his thrust towards authenticity and kind of honesty. And that's where you get him throwing out, like, you all could have overpowered us at any point. And it's saying it without, it's as close as the film gets to saying, like, you all hate yourselves. You all know you're horrible people and you absolutely despise it. You all want to die. Like, you all have accepted this and you haven't gotten up from your table. And like, that's something that truly troubles him, is he's gotten so far away from the authenticity of what he was and the authenticity of what servers are versus what this higher class is, which isn't accepting that that self-hatred, that self-awareness.
I was really thinking of Slowick as basically the foodie version of John Kramer from Saw.
Yes.
I would actually, could we make that Saw 10? Like they all have to get out of different kitchen traps. Just go full theme.
So fun fact, there is actually a terrible parody of Saw called Slaw.
Go on.
And it's so bad. I wanted to love it, but it's like full of like awful, like racist stereotype kind of jokes and, like, and then, just, casual bigotry, like in joke form where it's just like, it becomes offensive and you're just like, ugh, this is so bad. Like if they had taken all of that out, the humor in that film was really funny, but it just like gets like marred by that terrible,
Yeah.
It's always very sad in comedies when you can tell like somebody gave the script an uncle pass. Just throw in some of those jokes from the 80s.
Exactly, and that's what that feels like. Ugh, it's so bad. But I would say that, like, unlike Kramer, because John Kramer wants everybody to escape the traps.
Well, he says that, but he also makes those traps pretty hard.
He wants that.
Wait, hold on, though. No. John Kramer's traps are always pretty escapable.
That's fair, yeah.
It's Amanda and
all the apprentices, Hoffman,
who make them basically inescapable. So I would say John Kramer wants people to be able to escape, but not unscathed. Whereas,
I would say it was very unfair when he put the keys inside the tub, and then the guy woke up and found out they were playing a game. Like, he didn't even have a chance to get the key before it got flushed.
Look, Kramer just really hated that dude.
But wait,
shouldn't have panicked.
But wait, don't we find out like several movies later that was actually Amanda?
Yeah. She just threw it in there. It was in, I think it was a flashback in 2, where she just kind of like threw it in there.
Yeah, like, so it wasn't Kramer, it was Amanda again. But
that's why you never argue with Sauceberts.
Those first 3 movies are tight. They make sense.
So I will say that I always tell people this when watching the Saw films. Watch them back to back. Don't watch them like super paced out, because they make a lot more sense when you watch them all together.
Yeah.
Versus like, waiting like a month between them or something, because then you forget every small detail that happened. I'm a very big fan of the Saw franchise. I love Saw. It is one of my franchises, and I apologize that my dog is going insane. My husband just went out to dinner with friends, and so if my dog is barking in the background, it's because she misses him.
No, it adds so much.
I just assumed she was also a big fan of Saw, and she wanted us to know.
She's just like, I need to talk about John Kramer. But Slowick, on the other hand, had no intention of letting anyone leave. I don't think it mattered. And I think that was where, Margot's like, dance with him through this whole thing was interesting, because he didn't know what to do. Like, that quest for perfection, his menu has to go perfectly. This all has to go without, any sort of incident, because it's so tightly planned. And then there she is.
Right.
And so I think like that's him realizing that, like, him letting her go was kind of like him also like going back to his roots, where things didn't have to be so fine-tuned and perfect, as long as they were, good enough.
Here's something amazing about that ending to me. Every person I've talked to has come away with a different interpretation of why he let her live. And they're all equally valid statements, so that's fantastic. I love when the movie is able to provide just that little bit of ambiguity and enough character where you can think, no, that makes sense, but this guy's explanation makes sense. I hadn't heard yours before, but I could definitely see it.
I also think, like, she when she asked him for the cheeseburger, that's like when he was probably the most passionate about cooking.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, that was like when he just cooked because he loved to cook. And so he got to make this meal when she asked for that, and not the fancy, not the, Instagram worthy thing, like just a good cheeseburger.
She gives him purity.
Exactly. She's like, this is like, I want what I know you are passionate about, not what I think you should be passionate about, or what's trendy, what's up and coming, And so I think that he sees that in her. Like, he sees the appreciation of, like, what he does from her And then especially when she says, like, can I get it to go? Meaning, like, that was delicious. Like, I'm not just going to leave waste on my plate and walk away.
Mhm.
I think that also was like, for him, he was like, yeah, okay, you can take this to go, and I'm going to let you go.
Yeah. See, my stance on it was the film kind of focuses, in my mind, a lot about the question of authenticity, maybe in how your art is presented, uh, or how you experience things, how you present yourself. Part of why Slowick is so frustrated by Margot is he doesn't understand who she really is. And then we find out later she's actually an escort, and that's not her real name. And he's probably right to be a little suspicious of how she's not behaving how she's supposed to be behaving. Then at the end, we get this conflict where finally they can totally be their roles in an authentic way. He gets to be the giver, she gets to be the taker. And it's the idealized version of both of those transactions for him. You know, he gets to make a very good burger. He gets to make something he knows she will enjoy. He gets to watch her enjoy it. And she gets to say exactly what she wants and be very direct. And I think that was kind of it. It's perfection right there for him, which he values. And having gotten a taste of that, he can let her go.
She's also navigating him into the very base roles that he's clearly set up, and he kind of rules his life by the idea of the server and the specific rules set up as to how a server is meant to act and how a customer is meant to act. So when she asked it to go, it's like he's preordained to stay within that lane. So he has to follow through the function that she has presented. She asks it to go. He cannot kill her because he has to be able to provide the food in a doggy bag to take home. And I love the different layers of that working simultaneously, where she's giving him this, he's able to go back into this realm, but also she's playing the game that's been kind of like presented, because everyone in the film is playing these roles to like an absurd degree. But
Oh yeah.
what's funny to me is it's not a heightened reality of these roles. The film's just like turning to you and going, isn't it weird that we act this way?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting also though is that like he picks all of these people for very specific reasons. Like they're all bad people for different, reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And he has to try to figure out like he has like a morality like level for himself. Like, is Margot bad? Like, should I be killing her? Like, maybe she's not one of, maybe she's not one of them. Maybe she's one of us, and maybe, he's not gonna, kill one of us who hasn't agreed to that moment. And so I think that that plays into it as well. And he's trying to figure out, and he figures it out at the end when she can have anything she wants, says, I want like the basic cheeseburger. That's like his moment of like, oh, she's not one of them, because not one of them would have ordered a cheeseburger.
Right, as your last meal in the world's fanciest restaurant.
But they do allude to the ending very early in the film, and I don't know if anyone else picked up on it. I didn't pick up on it until the second time I saw it.
Where they're doing the tour of the kind of the barracks, and they mentioned the idea of burning.
Uh-huh. Yep. Not many people pick that up. Like, I didn't pick it up the first time, and then I saw it the second time, and I was like, oh, I see what they did there.
I wasn't guessing s'mores though, so I was still taken aback.
No one guesses s'mores. I am expecting when I go back to rewatch it that this is going to be like an infinitely rewatchable, just picking up on every little thing. It's so well planned out.
So I feel like a real dummy, but I couldn't figure out why Slowick bandages his hands right before the Coast Guard agent comes in. Did anyone else figure that out? Does someone know? Can they explain it to me like I'm 5?
Probably because he just wanted it to appear normal, like everything was normal. And if you're a chef in a kitchen and you injure yourself, you don't walk around with open wounds, you bandage yourself.
Yeah, but he hadn't cut his hand, had he?
Yes.
He had. Okay.
Something had happened at that point, and I'm trying to remember what it is now. But something had happened to his hand. He did like cut himself, or
so that would totally explain. I just didn't remember him cutting his hand, so I was really scratching my head like, what's a bandage? Is it a twist?
He did do something with him, but I can't remember what at that why, because that was after Man's Folly.
Was it because he had blood on his hand from touching his leg wound?
No, he did hurt. He got his hand cut or stabbed or something.
See, now I definitely have to watch it a
Now
second time just so I can
now I
answer this
don't even
one
remember,
question.
and I've seen it twice. I'm
Oh,
like,
no.
now it's gonna kill me. I'm like, wait, why? Why?
The Menu in theaters now. Watch it again and again to figure out the hand wrap mystery.
Do you know that this is Searchlight's most, like, this is their best movie in terms of box office since Slumdog Millionaire?
I saw that.
Wow,
That's
makes me so
bananas.
happy.
And good for them. They've done what, something like $15-16 million opening weekend?
Something like that, yeah. They did really well. I mean, go Gastro Horror.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of in a good period for that, aren't we? I don't know how it normally
This year
shakes
has
out
been,
each year, but
this has been a really big year for Gastro Horror.
so we've got what Bones and All I think comes out this week.
We have
There was
I have a
Fresh earlier in the
list.
year.
So we have
I feel like
Fresh. The Banquet came out. List because I had a list of this. So A Banquet came out on Shudder, and it technically had like a TIFF debut in 2021, but it didn't get any like other release until this year.
Mhm.
Then you had Flux Gourmet. You have Family Dinner, which is not out. It's still on the festival circuit. You have Bones and All. You had Peppergrass, which is still on the festival circuit. You have Do Not Disturb, which is on the festival circuit. You had Finga, which is another cannibalism, like fairy tale type movie, which is, that comes out, or that's still on the festival circuit. Frank and Penelope, which is another cannibalism movie, that's on VOD now. Feed Me, which I think is on VOD now, which is another cannibal. I mean, there's a lot of cannibal movies this year.
yeah. Wow, way
Eating
more than
Miss
I would've guessed.
Campbell. Eating Miss Campbell is a new Troma release, but it's still on the festival circuit. And
Excellent
then,
title.
and then there is a one called Mad Heidi, which has Casper Van Dien in it.
Oh.
And it's about a dystopian Switzerland that's fallen under the rule of a fascist evil cheese tyrant.
That is the greatest description I've ever heard.
And so then this innocent girl transforms herself into a kick-ass female fighting force who sets out to liberate the country from the insane cheese fascists. And I am so excited for this movie.
That sounds awesome.
I literally pre-ordered a copy of it because I was so excited.
I would like to pretend that Mouse Hunt is a prequel to it.
I don't want my Minnesota friends finding out about this because they will just be calling everyone from Wisconsin cheese fascists. They can't know. I have to hide this movie from them for the rest of their lives.
Also, can you imagine what it would be like to eat Casper Van Dien?
I mean, I don't think that they're literally made of cheese. I think that they sell cheese or make cheese.
This is obviously unrelated to the film. This is just actor Casper Van Dien. Like, I never thought of that before. Like, if I was to have a meal of a person, I think I'd want to choose Casper Van Dien.
I don't know. He's not that bulky. There's not a lot of meat on those bones. Like, I mean, I think, and his age, like, he's not old, but he's not young. So I think if I'm going to eat somebody, I want someone who's got a little bit more meat on their bones and the flesh is a little bit younger.
This all checks out. I would totally agree.
Like, I'm just going by, like, how we, like, you know, like, farm cattle and stuff. Like, nobody's eating, like, 10-year-old, like, steer.
The centerpiece his chin would make, though.
So to go back through your list, I haven't seen most of these since they're still on the festival circuit, but you mentioned Flux Gourmet, which I did check out the other day, and I was kind of surprised because Shudder put that one out, but I don't know if I would call it horror.
You know what? Even the genre tags on this call it horror. Like, even IMDb and Letterboxd both call it horror, and I absolutely agree. I don't think it's horror at all. Like,
yeah.
I think they assume just because there's like a little bit of grossness that you can call it horror, and I disagree. Like
body horror in the farthest sense, I guess.
Like, I was not really a huge fan of Flux Gourmet. I really wanted to love it, and I was really excited for it.
Yep.
But it just was a little bit too style over substance for me.
Yeah, totally same page. But that does bring me back to the menu. And right before I saw the movie, like the last tweet I read was someone saying, is this actually a horror movie or is this a thriller? And then watching it the entire time, I just had that argument with myself, like, would you call this a horror movie or would this just be like a dark comedy, a thriller? I mean, it's all semantics, but it made me wonder.
So I would say that it is like horror light, because like I know from just like my personal experience, like I know like I have friends who can handle thrillers but can't handle horror.
Mm-hmm.
And this is definitely one of those movies where I would probably tell them that they could probably handle it, but I know that they would be probably pretty bothered by like the ending. I think the ending is what takes it out of the solely thriller,
Yeah.
moment when he's, kind of doing
Right.
the whole Midsummer-esque,
When the cult all
engulfed in
immolates
flames.
themselves, yeah.
Yeah, like I think that's where I think it's like the third act is really where it hits horror versus just like dark comedy thriller.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I had a college class just watching classic horror films, and the professor made us have philosophical arguments about, is it horror or not? And he came down the side that it has to have a monster. Like, there has to be some sort of supernatural aspect to the film for it to cross over from thriller into horror, which is why he wasn't entirely sure if Halloween counted as a horror film, because they're ambiguous about Michael Myers in the first film.
Oh my goodness.
So I don't want to go into that argument because it's silly, but it makes me wonder, and that's a really, really good point, that third act, the tone kind of gets heightened and it's not presented unrealistically, but the events that are happening are over the top enough where you could say, yes, this doesn't really belong in thriller territory anymore. I hadn't really thought about that. That's an interesting way to kind of define where the genre stops.
Well, if you just like tweak the tone of dialogue, it becomes very unrelenting horror. Like you can make that into a very like somber, stark horror film that's almost depressing by just like altering the tone of the dialogue. Just that's a slight change, but it's the absurdity of the fact that everyone's acting this way, but it's a horror movie.
Right. Well, in the comedy, I really appreciated all the little jokes and humor that's throughout the movie. I think that helps prevent any sort of criticism that the movie is too pretentious for its own good. When it has the ability to laugh at itself and its own events, they're in on the joke, and that really helps things go down.
Yeah, I was just thinking about other moments in the movie that would make the guy cutting the guy's finger off.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
making, the guy's finger getting cut off. That's kind of more horror territory than thriller.
And I guess expectation-wise, I kind of forget those moments because I was expecting this to be kind of a bloodbath the entire way through, but it's fairly limited on gore. We have one person stabbed in the throat, one finger severed, there's a suicide by gun, and obviously everyone gets immolated at the end, but...
Wait, who gets their throat cut?
At the end, the hostess, when they're struggling inside of Slowick's house, yeah,
and then Tyler hangs himself, which is pretty horrific.
Right. See, I thought that was really clever misdirection because he gets up and he leaves. We don't know exactly what he's going to be doing, and then the next time they show him, we see him hanging, but they have his face kind of darkened. So you, in classic like movie nerd sense, you go, I'm not truly seeing his body and he died off camera. It's part of a larger twist. Like it was going to become April Fool's Day at the end, And then you find out, no, he just killed himself. That was just his body hanging in the dark. I think the movie actively toys with viewers like that, right? They kind of lay out things you would assume would be a twist. And then they go, no, that's not really a twist. You're overthinking.
Yeah. Like how Slowick's mother's just like sitting in the corner.
Right.
And you're like, that's got to be something bigger. Like, it's got to be something bigger. There's
so many parts, too, where those little nods, you think, oh, he's setting something up. Like, for a while, I thought that Anna Taylor-Joy's character was going to be revealed to be one of the actors in on this whole thing, and they were doing dinner theater. Like, when he's interrogating her and asking, who are you? I thought, like, oh, this could be dialogue basically saying, like, you're playing your role very poorly. It could be interpreted as him grilling her because she's not doing her character right. And, of course... way overthinking it, just putting way too much thought into what's happening. I was being a Tyler in that moment.
Oh, my husband's been walking around the house constantly saying to me, is that bergamot? I think that's bergamot. And it didn't help that we did a recipe for the menu where it was wild bergamot and red clover tea. And so the whole time we were shooting this recipe, my husband just was on me. He was, oh, is that bergamot? I think that's bergamot. I taste a little bergamot. And I'm like,
What's your take on why Slowick brought Tyler in? Like, why he had opened up communication with him in the first place?
Because he's an influencer. and influencers are the root of all evil in the restaurant. And
that would explain the emphasis on him
think,
constantly taking the pictures, and that's why it's on the tortillas.
That's why, like, I think it is. I think Tyler was there because he did not, like, they make a whole point, like, when he goes and talks to the sous chef, and he's like, oh, the sous chef knows my name, the sous chef knows my name, whoa, I'm so cool. And then Anya Taylor-Joy's like, you didn't even ask him his name.
Right.
You're so impressed by what this, guy is doing, but you didn't even ask his name.
Or as things get more and more unhinged, he's only focused on just eating the food that's in front of him. Like, he doesn't care if someone lost a finger or if someone shot themselves. He knows they're all going to die. He doesn't care. He's just there exclusively for the food.
And then he's like calling her a child and snapping at her. That reminded me so much of the beginning of Fresh, when the guy on the date makes her pay half and then takes her leftovers.
Right, yeah.
Oh my God, when I watched that, I'm not even shitting you, I was so angry. I was like, what kind of asshole does that? If some guy tried to take my leftovers on a date, I would stab him with a fork.
You would have it coming. No jury would convict.
Yeah, I would literally just be like, oh no, that's not what's happening, stab. And then I would walk out, like, no. And it kind of reminded me of that. I was like, oh, where's his scarf? Like, oh
boy, oh man, and well, it's funny to me because they have Tyler, the most, I don't know, probably obnoxious guy amongst the crew, filled with obnoxious characters, but he's played by Nicholas Hoult, who is fairly charismatic. Like, I normally see him and stuff and go, oh cool, that guy's around, and in this one he gets to turn that and be just a complete D-bag.
He was really good, and I don't know, it's totally unrelated, but if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend Tolkien.
Yeah.
In 2019 they did a movie about Tolkien.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that one.
And he plays Tolkien. And it was a really great movie. Like, I don't think it gets talked about enough, but I think it's definitely, one that is worth seeing.
Yeah.
No, that was a movie that just seemed to pop up out of nowhere and then immediately vanish.
Yeah.
Like, I think I saw one single ad for it, and that was it.
It was definitely one of those movies where you have a very specific audience in mind for it, and I think that they just, kept it to a minimum, didn't waste a lot of money on marketing, because they knew that it was for that very specific crowd.
I would be terrified to make anything aimed at Tolkien fans. Their attention to detail is so exacting, it's like, there's no way I'm going to nail this.
Oh, we did a recipe for Tolkien toast for that movie. And you know what? I will say that I was pretty impressed with it, because I did a lot of research for that because I was not about to become, and there's also, like, I don't know if you know, but on his birthday, at 9 p.m. on his birthday, which is I think January 3rd, you raise a glass at 9 p.m. and say, the professor, which is how you toast Tolkien on his birthday. But we also did mushroom toast because he said in a quote that he liked good plain food, detested French cooking, but he loved mushrooms. And so, though our recipe was slightly French-ish because we did use butter and thyme, but we also used dry sherries, so it wasn't quite so French forward. But yes.
What an Anglophile he was. I'd assume it'd just be like a bunch of beans and toast.
Beans and toast is delicious.
I don't have a problem with it.
We talk about beans on this podcast way too much.
That's true, but man, we have to admit, what a great source of fiber.
Beans are delicious. It's really unfortunate that they do what they do, because nobody wants to talk about how delicious they are for that reason. But I
will die on the hill that lima beans are the shit.
I like lima beans. Lima beans are delicious.
I will eat nothing but lima beans every day.
Lima beans might be the most underrated foods on the planet.
I would say it is definitely at least the most underrated vegetable. I definitely think lima beans are an A-OK veggie.
Cody, if you're planning to say anything over there about lima beans, you ate candy corn brats.
No, I have nothing bad to say about lima beans. One, I was just really impressed that everyone was so enthusiastic about them. I didn't know that was such like
we all
cool
bonded
subject.
over lima beans.
Man, we should have been hashtagging those in all of our Twitter posts. We'd have like 30,000 new followers.
Hashtag lima bean love.
I got caught thinking of vegetables. You mentioned like most underrated one. I'm like, oh man, but Brussels sprouts are right there.
Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts are great.
Jamie and I had a very long conversation about Brussels sprouts the other night.
I rediscovered them this week. I'm very excited.
I grew up hating them because my mother, we were not a very wealthy family growing up, but my mother always bought frozen vegetables. Like she didn't like canned, and we couldn't always like afford fresh, or she didn't cook fresh. I don't know. But we always had frozen vegetables, and so she'd always serve like, cooked Brussels sprouts, but they were basically like defrosted from frozen Brussels sprouts. And it was like they were like little wet balls of like, fart smell, because that's basically what Brussels sprouts smell like. And then when I was older, I discovered roasted Brussels sprouts, like when you cook them in the oven and they get that nice char on that. Now I love Brussels sprouts. But growing up, I was convinced that they were like the devil.
That was the moment I knew I had become an old person, when I went to a restaurant, saw they had Brussels sprouts on like the appetizer menu. I'm like, hell yes. Oh, it's a good fucking day. Brussels sprout time.
I can't wait to order a glass of water with this.
There's a restaurant near me that has Kung Pao Brussels sprouts on the appetizer menu, and I've gotten very close to being able to recreate them, but still, there's something else in there that I have not been able to pin.
I would also argue, speaking of underrated vegetables, though, that cauliflower is drastically underrated. Like, cauliflower is so good in so many ways. It's almost, for me, almost as good as potatoes.
Ooh.
Yes, I love mashed cauliflower, honestly.
Fried cauliflower.
Yes.
Cauliflower seems to pair with a lot more dishes than I think broccoli would. It's like, there are very specific foods I want to eat with broccoli. Cauliflower kind of goes with everything.
It's like cod. You can do anything with it.
Yeah, we grill cauliflower a lot. Like, we have like a grill basket, and so we'll like toss it with like some olive oil and some fresh herbs and salt, and then just throw it on the grill. And it's so good. So good.
I had cold sweet potatoes today.
I mean, you could have warmed them up.
It was totally my choice. I didn't have to do any of this.
No.
You just put on Hurt by Johnny Cash and just had your tummy cry.
I will say that next time, if you want good pumpkin beer brats, go look at my website and go get the recipe, because we have a recipe for like beer brats, and so you use pumpkin beer and then cook them that way.
Now we're talking. Delicious. Yeah, that sounds fire. I would do that.
That's probably way better than having a brat that has pumpkin spice already put into it.
Before like the Jenny Street Market come to beat me up, not as bad as I thought they were going to be, honestly.
I mean, all
please
pumpkin
don't
spices,
sue me, Jenny Street Market.
I mean, I don't understand the big deal. All pumpkin spice is like literally like cinnamon, nutmeg, and like allspice. It's things that we all regularly eat, so it's just all put together.
You want to talk about food snobbery? The look I've gotten over the years whenever I'm eating something that's pumpkin spice, and people go, "Oh, you're one of those people." It's like, motherfucker, it's a flavor.
But Jamie, you're doing pumpkin spice mayo.
I think the only thing pumpkin spice that I don't really like is pumpkin spice lattes from Starbucks. And that's because they're too sweet. Like, if they did like a sugar-free version, I would be all about that. But they put like 5 pumps of like full sugar pumpkin syrup, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. I drink my coffee black. So like, for me, that's a lot. Like, that's just like going way too far. I usually just buy like those like Jordan's skinny syrups, which are like the 0-calorie, sugar-free, blah, blah, but they have good pumpkin flavors. And so I usually just buy those and pour a little bit, like I usually do about a tablespoon in my cup of coffee, depending on how big my cup is that day. And that's it. Like, then you get the pumpkin spice flavor, but it's not like cloying.
They truly are ruining the art.
I do. I only drink black coffee myself, and now that I have a pour over, I put a little bit of pumpkin spice in the coffee grounds for the pour over, and it's
if you don't like acid in your coffee, like if you have problems with acid, put a little pinch of salt into your coffee.
Yes. I see like a tiny bit of sea salt on top too. It's
It
good stuff.
helps. It neutralizes the acidity of your coffee and helps to balance it out a little bit.
Yeah, it's very smooth.
If you have a particularly acidic coffee, yeah, that's like what that's all I've got for coffee is cinnamon and salt. Like
Sarah and I are just going to talk about coffee now for an hour and a half.
Oh boy.
I also drink tea. I mean, I'm
I
an
have
equal
tea in front of me.
opportunity.
Contain volumes.
I'm an equal opportunity caffeinator. Like I like both.
Before we get Mike going on about tea or coffee for another hour, we are getting pretty close to time. So I think let's transition into a wrap-up question here. With it coming up on Thanksgiving, Sarah, is there a gastro horror movie you would recommend for the holiday?
Hell yes. I got you. Pilgrim is my Thanksgiving movie. Like, I watch Pilgrim every year on Thanksgiving. It is so good. You have death by food. You've got cannibalism. You've got an actual Thanksgiving meal. Like, it's not just a horror movie that takes place like around Thanksgiving. It's like an actual Thanksgiving horror movie. And it's on Hulu, so it's easy to stream. It's one of the Blumhouse Into the Dark movies.
Oh, okay.
And I definitely recommend that one. If you're looking for something a little bit more like cheesy slasher, I recommend Blood Rage.
My folks were looking for a movie to go see since the whole family's going to be together. We were leaning towards Glass Onion, but maybe I'll switch it around. We'll see how they deal with this.
I mean, it depends on how your folks...
No, I'm pretty sure they'd hate it, so I'll just watch this on my own time.
It would definitely be a conversation piece for you.
That's true. Yeah, you never know.
That might work
folks
out
love
better.
The interview, so sometimes they like things you wouldn't expect them to like. But I think that does it for time. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to talk about the menu with people, so this is a real treat for me. See, got one more food put in. Yes!
Shut up, Cody.
Oh, man, I'm almost done, I swear, Mike.
Somebody better me. I'm in a row.
Oh, Jamie, nice! Fantastic. If you want to get more Box Office Pulp, you can find us, as long as Twitter's still around, at Box Office Pulp, or wherever podcasts are found. Sarah, where's the best place to find your works?
Oh, Twitter is probably it right now, but I'm on Letterboxd, I'm on Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. Final Girls Feast, Spooky Sarah Says. It's like, I keep it easy. It's the same like username for everything. Geeks Who Eat, same everywhere. So if you're looking for those, we're that way all over the web.
Nice. Oh man, I'm starving for real food now. So I'm going to hang up and go find something that isn't a sausage. It's going to be awesome.
Just beans
Thanks
and
so much.
Brussels sprouts.
More? Yeah, that's it. I got a bunch of Bush's baked beans in the cabinet. Just go dine on those.
Why don't you throw some candy corn in there?
Please don't.
I don't think I have any leftovers, Mike, unfortunately. I'll have to do like fun size Snickers or Butterfingers.
Oh, I'm imagining that melting over beans, and I'm very sad and disgusted and kind of want to throw up.
That's the perfect note to end the show on. Thanks so much for listening. That's a wrap.
And like that, he's gone.
This is Box Office Pulp Guy, and this has been a Pulp Podcast production. Now please, 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 put a gun in my mouth and pull the trigger and say goodnight.
And now, on with the show.